Do these headphones make my ears look fat?
No, they're very complimentary to the blue shirts.
I wore my Coldwell Banker blue for you.
All right, everybody. Hey, welcome back to another episode of the JK Experience. All right, we're going to mix this up. I am so excited in studio tonight. Even though I don't have James, my wingman, I have two really great people that have been a part of my lives for a while. I've got Shannon and Todd Conklin. What's happening?
What's happening?
Thanks for having us.
Oh my gosh, it is awesome to have you guys here. I'm so excited, not only just for this conversation, but all of the other conversations that I know we're going to cram into the next day. So thanks for taking time out of a busy schedule. I know exactly how crazy you guys are. We've had many conversations about just life and how do you manage everything and put it together. And, Todd, you and I have talked about balance in life, and we know that there's no such thing as balance in life. And what I really want to go into, and I'm just going to dive into it because I just want to take as much time as I can with you guys. I really want to go into, when we often talk to individuals, we're only seeing one side of the picture. We're only seeing, that agent or that owner or that business owner, that CEO from their perspective. And very rarely are you getting both people and the couples in to talk about what life looks like together. And you guys are in this journey together, like not only just because you're married, but also because you're both active in the companies themselves. And so, Shannon, you play a very important role in the company. Todd, you obviously play a very important role in the company. I'd like to know, and I just want to dive into that is, obviously you guys have grown through this and you guys are very free about talking that. I think if anything, probably more now than ever in your life, are you guys comfortable having those conversations and letting people into those areas of your life where maybe you haven't been as successful in the past? What has that growth been like for you in the last, let's just go like the last 6 months. Like, why have you guys gotten to a point in your marriage and in your business that you're okay talking about some of those struggles?
Oh, no. First things first. Like, this is so funny. First things, we're never doing another one of these without first having the questions in advance. Like, we're not doing that. But it's funny because I'm not sure we know. I don't think we have it figured out. Certainly, like even on the plane ride over here, we had some, pretty fierce conversations and very interesting question. I'm never doing this again.
And I feel like I could actually answer this question because
that's why we're gonna have Shannon
had kind of this, you go through these struggles, and I was always very free talking about my struggles with Todd. That wasn't a problem, but I was more, I wasn't always taking responsibility for my stuff, and it really wasn't. I mean, it was God. When we both were pursuing Him, then I was able to see things a lot clearer, give Him a lot more grace, and vice versa.
Yeah.
And just realizing that, gosh, I look at all the struggles that we have been through. I used to look at them as disappointed or shame or just angry that I had to go through that, rather than, man, God, I see the plan you have for us. I see things so much clearer, and we wouldn't be here. We wouldn't be as strong to be able to do that for other people if we hadn't gone through that. So it was a flip. It was a mentality flip.
Todd?
That's great. I was listening to your intro there, and it was talking about walk a mile in my shoes and responsibility and discipline, all really important words to all of our journey. I think oftentimes we experience our life as things that are happening to us, and there's a shame. Shannon used disappointment to that whole deal. And then once you begin to open up and be more vulnerable, and that came from Shannon, like she forced me in our relationship to be more open and more vulnerable, just feel safer to have conversations with people. You learn, oh my gosh, I'm not the only one.
Yeah.
Like, this is a common thing. And, so if it's not happening to me, then it must be happening for me.
Yeah.
And how does that fit into what my purpose is? And our purpose, our stated purpose, is to change lives. Well, Well, the only way I know to change lives, I love Maxwell always talks about, you can't give what you don't have. Well, then you better tackle some of those big issues in your life, whether they be in your marriage or with your kids or your friends or substance abuses or, just being an asshole, right? You better attack those, figure out what kind of person, marriage, father you want to be. Get rid of the things that are challenges to you to get there. Identify somebody perhaps that can help you get there faster, and then roll up your sleeves and make it happen, because ultimately you are 100% in control and responsible for what the outcomes are.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more. I'm Shannon, you mentioned something earlier about just giving that grace, and I'd heard this definition this last week, and I just loved it. I think it really kind of encapsulated, and I'd like to dive a little bit deeper in this with you, is giving someone grace is basically giving something what they don't deserve.
100%.
But because what you want to do is you want to react to that, and what you're doing is like, no, I'm going to give them the opposite. I'm going to give them the opposite of what they really truly deserve, and that's that grace that you have to give them. In your guys', as you guys kind of have grown together, and really blended those lines between marriage and business and leadership and all of those things. I mean, it's not just like, it's not so clear cut, I mean, you just can't say, all right, well, as long as we get together on these things. No. It's like everything has to be aligning well. What has that journey been like for you? Like, what was the point where you're just like, I got to give the grace. I found how to give grace now. How'd that happen for you?
I think I still figure it out on a daily basis, to be honest.
Absolutely.
But it's knowing that, whereas before I felt like I would just get angry. And again, I'd want to treat him how he deserved, rather than I want him to treat me this way. So why would I treat him in a different way? So, like even on the plane, and we both will say, okay, I need to tell you something. It might come out wrong.
Yeah.
Just, can you give me grace if I mess it up? Because, and assume the best intention. And I think I used to always, and we both struggle with, all right, Shannon did something that made me mad, and she did it on purpose.
Yeah.
Not that, gosh, you did something that made me mad, and I know that wasn't your intent, babe. That's real heart, and that's real vulnerability to say, that really hurt my feelings, Todd. I know that's not your intent, because I know you love me.
Yeah.
And working through it.
Yeah. Well, and I don't know how well you guys will take this when I say this, but you guys are a power couple, and I think that a lot of people have a hard time, taking that compliment, because we all know, your own faults, right? And when Kate and I are out there, the way that people kind of hold Kate and I up in a certain light, it is hard to take that sometimes, even though we appreciate that, but we all know our faults. We're not perfect, and we have our struggles. And I know that you guys are they're in the limelight a lot. You guys are held to very high standards because of the success that you guys have had in business and what you guys continue to do. How do you guys deal with that when once again, that there's some internal things that are always going on, that you're always battling, like every healthy marriage does, I would say. And there's got these expectations. How do you guys continue to not hold those types of expectations to be perfect with each other?
That's really funny that you're looking at me. I thought for sure you would take that one.
I thought he was looking at you, so I like I said, I'm never doing this show without questions in advance. But listen, we talked about grace. I think one of the very first things you have to do is you have to give yourself grace. Right? Mm-hmm. It's got to be okay that you've been forgiven, and you're going to make a bunch of mistakes along the way. And I think you have to start there. Otherwise, what you end up with is this false persona, these masks, as we talk about, and then that bleeds over. One thing we talk about, how you show up here, wherever here is how you're going to show up someplace else. Boy, that stuff will infect the rest of your life. And next thing you know, you're faking everything. And I don't know about you, but I don't want to follow a faker.
Yeah.
I want to follow a leader.
Yeah.
Well, and Josh, you talked about discipline, maybe actually in the intro, and when I'm not, first of all, if I miss my appointment with God in the morning, forget about it. The day is not going to go as well. I'm not going to have the composure that I need to have, the patience with my kids, the grace for my husband. There was this podcast I was just listening to the other day. Stephen Covey, maybe not. Anyways, own your weather. So whatever I'm feeling, if I miss that appointment with God, I don't have the discipline to get up when my alarm says to get up, and I'm not fueling myself properly. I'm not moving. I'm not able to have good weather. And that's just, I'm going to take that with me with my kids, with my husband, and definitely into the office. And we all know that energy is contagious. I always say that to my kids, and the negative stuff is like the plague.
Yeah.
One more thing to that, when we think about the way other people see us, I'm not saying that I don't feel it.
Right.
I think what I'm saying is I give myself grace.
Yeah.
I think by giving myself grace, it gives me the ability to use what they see in me to go out and work harder to live up to it.
Yeah.
Right. So I'm not going to take the day off. Right. Yeah. I'm going to do one extra rep, like whatever it is, so that I can align with what they see.
Yeah. When I think that, and not only when you give yourself that grace, you also are able to live more authentic. When you haven't forgiven yourself, or when you have these expectations that you have to be perfect in the light of everybody else, you can't live authentic, because nobody's perfect, and we know that we all struggle with things in our life. Talking about discipline, one of the things, Shannon, I'm really glad that I'm glad that you brought that up, because one of the things we talk about a lot in the office is that, once you've identified those disciplines, you can't be doing 8 out of the 10 disciplines. You can't be doing 7 out of the 10 disciplines, because you can do 9 out of the 10 disciplines. Once you've identified the ones that really help you be the best person, the best version of yourself, you got to stick to those top 10 or whatever those numbers are. Because if you drop one of them, right, your appointment with God, it affects everything else. Right? It's not like you're just the 9/10 of the person you were. No. You're like literally half the person you are if you would have done, right? How do you guys do that? How do you manage your disciplines in your life with the chaos that obviously is going on? And I say chaos in a good way, not in a like out of control way, but more of you have busy lives, you have very busy schedules. How do you guys? Because I know you guys are very good at that. How do you control that? How do you stay within your disciplines?
So we just were gone for about a month traveling, and I'll tell you, it was really hard to get out of it, because we're in 3 different states, one being Hawaii, so plane rides and schedules flipped upside down, and then had some stuff going on just in the office, but we were in Sun Valley, so not the main office, and it definitely impacted it. And so a lot of times you just have to hit the reset button, and there's where the grace comes in. And just know that if I do these things, I know I'm going to get this outcome. And it's like you almost just, discipline is something that you cultivate every day. You don't have it, or you don't or have not. When people say to me, I wish I had your discipline, man, I have to work on it every single day. So
yeah. There's a great story about Greg Norman on a Pro-Am where he's played, 16 or 17 holes with these folks. And there's a guy who's got a terrible slice, and one ball tee shot after another tee shot, it's just out of bounds to the right, and come up to the 16th hole, and one of them says, hey, can you tell me what I'm doing wrong? And he goes, yeah, just aim farther left. Now, the bottom line is every single day we are at a different level. We're on point here and maybe a little off point here. We play the game as the game is today. So having that discipline in each of the different areas, and being able to say, hey, listen, I hit one out of bounds, re-tee, and let's do it again, right? We don't walk off the course.
Yeah.
We don't give up.
Yeah.
The other part of discipline, is interesting. So there are areas of discipline where Shannon is far more disciplined than I am, and there are areas that I'm more disciplined than she is. And being okay with that, in our marriage, I think there's been lots of times where one of us has looked at the other one with the judgy eyes. You know what I'm talking about? Like
I don't know about one of us. Maybe the other one.
Yeah, I know which one I'm talking about.
We're both slightly competitive people.
Right.
Slightly type A.
Slightly type A.
Yes.
But when you look at somebody and giving them the grace there as your spouse, you are one. We are one person. So to judge the other person is to judge thyself. And so to lend a hand and say, hey, I notice that you're having a hard time here. What can I do to help you? And vice versa.
So do you guys create boundaries where, listen, we're not talking business, we're getting rid of it? I mean, and it's because I know it's really hard. We've had seasons in our lives personally where, Jenny and Tommy, so Tommy is our marketing director and was, business partner. They were building a house, so they came and lived with us. And I know it got to a point with Kate where she said, enough with the business, because it was 24/7. We would go to work, talk about it, come home, talk about it. And it was an eye opener for me because it's so easy to talk about business when you're just loving it and you're just, you're constantly growing, you're constantly pushing, and it's exciting. Have you guys established your boundaries where you say, in order for us to be healthy, we've got to have some time?
Yeah, I mean, and we've had a few different ways that we've done that, honestly, because for a while I was not in the business with him. I was home raising babies. Mm-hmm. And, when we started our business and then 2008 happened, Todd was traveling like pretty much week on, week off. And so we got to a point where, and he just felt he had to. I mean, he really had to keep a roof over our heads and food on the table. And then when we got to the point where he didn't have to anymore, he didn't know how to stop. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, it took us going to therapy. I'm going to say that on this podcast, Todd.
Thanks for outing me. Yeah.
one of a few. And she's like, do you need to actually work that? Do you have to travel that much anymore? And he was like, wow, I don't.
Yeah.
So that was a big one. And then we have boundaries, and we have to kind of reestablish and remind ourselves that after 6 p.m. we don't talk about business.
Or you just don't talk, period.
We don't.
We have nothing to say to each other. It's no business. I mean,
no more.
And then Sundays, we do no text Sundays, although our kids are revolting. So we're going to revisit that boundary. Yeah. But yeah, it's easy to work 24/7.
Yeah. I love this. One of the things that I do constantly in my life is I'm consistently inconsistent, meaning that I'm consistent with the things that I know are my disciplines, but I'm inconsistent with as how many times I have to do this one thing, right? So it might be a season in my life where I'm getting up at 5 o'clock, but then I give myself the grace to go, you know what? It's a different season. Now I'm going to give myself the ability to get up at 7 if I want to, right? Because I'm going to be burning the midnight oil, or we're doing something else and it's taking my time, and I got to give myself the rest, right? It was a hard time for me. It was hard for me to do that because I think consistency of like, that's the way it's always been, or that's what an achiever does, or that's what a leader does, or that's what an overachiever does. And until I gave myself that grace personally, to be a little bit inconsistent with it, like I was always driving myself insane. Todd, I know, for you, you're such a driver, you're such a visionary, you're such a dreamer in a positive way, right? How do you continue to, how do you not balance, but how do you continue to mold everything together, be the best dad that you need to be the best husband you want to be the best leader that you need to be? How do you do all of that with a working relationship and all of the balls that you have juggling? Like, if you could try to sum it up or just try to put it in a few sentences, like where are you at with that?
That's a good one. I think I think wisdom is an interesting thing, right? So we go through all of these experiences. Most of the experiences that we go through are the failures that we've had. We take that information and then we've got to figure out how to utilize it, right? How do we implement it? So as I said, there are certain areas where I may be more disciplined, or maybe I don't feel the emotion as much in one area that maybe Shannon does, right, or doesn't. And so I'll give you an example. So when her being newer to the business, life is pretty chaotic, right? Whether it be in business, leading people, especially when you're 13 offices, 3 states, like it's a lot of, there's a lot going on.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of that before that I just never shared with her because I felt like I was protecting her. Mm-hmm. She's now obviously a huge part of the leadership of our company and is doing amazing things within our organization. She's also seeing all the good, bad, and the ugly.
Yeah.
And so just having the patience, I think, but I think that came from wisdom. I think it came from times where I was trying to put square pegs in round holes and trying to have my way. This is the way it's going to be, instead of just allowing God's plan to unfold.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Oh no, I liked how you said the consistently inconsistent, because it's like a pattern interrupt. You have to be able to life throws a curveball at you and you got to be able to pivot.
Yeah.
Or else you're going to react.
Yeah. Yeah. I really loved, one of the things you said, Todd, right there was the fact that you were trying to do what you thought was as a good husband, good leader, is protect Shannon from some of the bad things that were going on. And I remember distinctly there was a moment in Kate and I's relationship where we were going through a recession. We just bought a new building. There was just, and it was just financially, it was just all unraveling in a sense, right? And I, in my leadership, thought, well, I'm not going to involve her in that because it's just going to stress her out, right? And that was, once again, trying to go through that, learning wisdom. It was the knowledge, understanding. I was in the understanding part of it, of going, when it finally did kind of hit the fan, and then we did have that conversation, it was enlightening to see how hurtful it was that as much as I was trying to protect her, I wasn't including her, and she wanted to be more included than she wanted to be protected. And that was a massive time in our lives. Shannon, as you, as you were, went from a professional woman to raising babies, and now back in the professional world of it, talk to me about what it was like for you, first of all, to go from a professional woman to raising kids and not having that's part of your life there.
Well, that was all God's plan too, because I was never, ever going to be a stay-at-home mom.
Yeah.
And I said that many times, and certainly to Todd. And I had that baby, and my first baby, Cole. And I was just, you can't describe it until you have a child of your own. You can't describe the love that you feel. I had no idea. And so about 2 months into my maternity leave, I went to my boss and said, I know I'm supposed to come back next month. Can I have an extra month? And then another month came by. Oh, no, I'm supposed to come back next month. Can I just work 2 days in the office and then 3 from home? And then I ended up going back and giving him my month's notice. So that was that was chosen for me, and it was a bit hard though, because you feel like you lose your identity. And Todd's out there, working and getting all the accolades and posting pictures on Facebook, at dinner with this people, and I'm home changing diapers and scrubbing the floor. And my accolades, of course, now looking back, they're way better to get baby snuggles and whatnot. But so there was some resentment there for sure. And then coming back into it, well, now all I want to do is go back to being a stay-at-home mom.
I was going to say, careful what you wish for, right?
Right.
But hearing I totally understand Kate's point of view, because man, had I known how hard it was, all those things, the thoughts, that could have brought us to a place that we were, both, that we were closer faster, but again, God's plan, we wouldn't be where we are now hadn't we not gone through all that, had he not, tried to protect me from it. But, we're a team, we are one. And so we're stronger together. And so if I know what he's struggling with and vice versa, I know that I've got his support in anything that I'm struggling with, and he's definitely got mine. So,
yeah. That's awesome. One of the things that we're seeing more of personally within the Coldwell Banker company here is more married couples getting into it together. They're getting into real estate together. I think right now we're on our 3rd family that is completely both committed to selling real estate, husband and wife. And it's interesting, those interesting conversations, and I really like to have those conversations with them, because as much as Kate wasn't, she wasn't never licensed. However, she was in it, right? She literally, every day she was a part of it with me. What advice would you give? And I kind of want to wrap this up. What advice would you give to somebody that they're spouses and they're saying, you know what, we're going to be committed, whether it's in real estate or just whether it's in a business adventure. What would you give them as advice to that they would have a little bit of wisdom and some foresight of some things that maybe they're going to be faced with, or maybe some things that they need to be either having conversations about or how they should be handling stuff?
No, not kidding. I had to.
I know, I lobbed that one to you.
I know, that was a softball. Listen, I think it's amazing. I'll start off with here's the reality. I love my wife. I love going to work with her. I think it's absolutely amazing that I get the opportunity to see my wife every single day, that we get to lift each other. Nobody knows me better. Nobody knows her better. So I knew exactly what her strengths are. I think we have the ability to absolutely light the world on fire.
Yeah.
So that's incredibly exciting for me. It's also because we knew each other so well. Yeah, can we get on each other's nerves? Sure. But more than that, we have the ability to pull out greatness from each other, right?
Yeah.
And because we know how they need to be spoken to, how I need to be spoken to, what likely she's feeling right now or I'm feeling right now. So there are a gazillion different reasons why you should absolutely do it. So that's the disclaimer, right? And now some of the do's and the don'ts. You want to play around with this one? What are two things you absolutely would tell any husband not to do?
Not to tell his wife what to do.
There's one.
No.
One check mark.
Well, for definitely one thing, and we're not awesome at it. We constantly need work on it. Is to guard your time, protect your time. An email doesn't need to be answered at 8 p.m. It can be handled in the morning. If you have a date night, it's a date night. It's not let's go out to dinner at a fancy restaurant and talk more about work.
Yeah, that's good.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah.
I think one thing I would say from all the ladies out there, if your man is the leader of your team or in your company, ask questions, don't tell him. I think that was a really hard one for me. And then if you're joining and it wasn't built by you together, right? Does that make sense? So in our organization, it was I that we went to work and slayed the dragons and did all those things. And you're entering the business, step lightly. For whatever reason, guys, I think, have a much harder time from an ego standpoint than the ladies do. So I know that when she got into the business, I felt sometimes like I was being stepped on, which of course was never her desire. So what about something that you would say, absolutely do this?
Well, I want to go back to that's interesting about being stepped on.
Yeah, you just opened that door, bro.
Well, no, but I know because there were times like you felt like, wait a second, this was my place where I was the king of the hill.
Yeah.
And now you're taking some of the spotlight, and that took some, working through. And not that I was like coming in saying, hey, look at me, but I will say, he has made me such a better leader.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't recommend somebody going in to an organization as large as ours. It's easier to start small because I had a crash course. I always said I was not a great leader because, I lacked patience. I lacked, that skill set to, pull out, the genius from others, and I was always, I'm the genius, not I'm the genius maker. And now that switch is flipped in me too. And that's in large part with Todd and in treading lightly, there are some landmines that he's already stepped on and been blown to bits. So why learn that lesson the hard way?
Yeah.
Ask a lot of questions.
Yeah.
But
good.
absolutely, I love working together. I love bouncing ideas off each other. And also in doing that and asking questions, you guys, he can have an idea. I'm asking a bunch of questions. And then together we can come up with something even better.
Yeah. Yeah. I'll tell you, I've been very fortunate in a number of different businesses to work with family. And, they always tell you, oh, never work with family. It's the worst thing you'll ever do. And, I've never had that mindset. We had hard conversations? Absolutely. But there's nobody I'd ever want more in my corner than family. And the fact that you two have made that decision to be family and to be doing business together is awesome. And, things change. We know that in 5 years, things could be different, but the fact that you guys have done this, the wisdom you guys have gained through that, and I think the wisdom you can impart on so many other people that are going through that is just going to be awesome. So I'm going to cut this now. We're about 30 minutes. This is awesome.